We just want to like hop in.
You don't have any memes.
I did not do my homework. I'm barely keeping up with editing the episodes. I didn't do any research. I mean, I'm sure we can talk about stuff. You want to talk about Wayne and his hats? I guess this is going to be our Cosmere Connections episode, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so this maybe is the time to talk about Wayne and his hats. Because that's a meme in the community about who's a better, who's a better impersonator, Shalon with her split personalities or Wayne and his hats.
Uh,
It's less of a joke with a punchline, but it's just like, hey, if you
what are the Dougs or the cousins
because of
think?
open, it doesn't matter because everybody's Shalon. It's all Shalon.
Okay, that makes
It
more
doesn't.
sense.
It doesn't matter who's a better impersonator because it's all the same person.
All right, that's a good conclusion. Actually, I feel like that's something everybody can get on board with.
Yeah. Well, hello and welcome to Cosmere Casual, your casual reader's guide for the Cosmere Curious. I'm your co-host and secretly Shalon, Nick Gorman.
And I'm your co-host, AJ Gorman.
Who is also secretly Shalon or no? Today we're talking about, how the Alloy of Law fits into the broader Cosmere. So we'll touch also on like elements of foreshadowing.
There will be lots of spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers for everything that's published in the Cosmere as of whatever day it is, April 2025.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get this episode out. I know they just announced, Isles of the Emberdark. We don't have any spoilers there because we haven't even, we haven't read it yet. I mean, they just announced the release date and the cover and everything. But
When is the release date?
fall, I don't know.
That should be out before then.
Yeah, but so we've got spoilers for everything, but not that.
Okay. Just as a recap, more for ourselves because it's been a while since we recorded the last episode. The Alloy of Law is book 1 in era 2 of Mistborn.
AKA the Wax and Wayne series.
The Wax and Wayne
AKA
series.
Mistborn Era 2.
Yeah.
AKA, are there any other AKAs for that one?
AKA the
Mistborn
magic.
4.
The magic is the consistent character throughout all of Mistborn books, throughout all of the eras. Stormlight, we've said this before, but it's worth reiterating. Stormlight Archive is supposed to have kind of span the ages with consistent characters.
I'm going to go get my dog because she's driving me nuts.
Okay. Am I supposed to pause or keep going? Okay. Well, Hoyd's origins and viewpoints will kind of bookend the Cosmere, but Mistborn is supposed to be kind of the magic being the faster paced series, with magic being the consistent but developing connection to help us understand or wrap our brains around the fact that all of these stories span eras.
I don't know if I agree with the characterization though, that's the only thing that's in common, right? Because like I for some reason I thought that one of the main conceits with Mistborn was that it's your characters from era 1 become the legends of era 2, become the myths, for era 3, right?
Right.
So it's, yeah.
And we don't know how long our characters that did survive to era 2, how much longer they may or may not survive. But the point is that
Survivor's gonna survive?
with consistent characters in Stormlight, it's pretty hard to wrap your brain around the fact that there's so much time passing. But with kind of going from era to era in Mistborn, it's a lot easier for our brains to understand there is so much time passing.
Yeah. Well, and like era 1 was, swords and sorcery, right? It was, basically on the not quite at the Industrial Revolution yet. And here they've got radio. Do they have radios yet?
I don't think they have radios.
In Alloy of Law, Wax gets electric lights installed at his house.
Yes.
Right? Like that's yeah.
Let's get into some more Cosmere specific things, like talking about shards. We've talked before about paying attention to how people are swearing in Mistborn books. But there's also moments where the characters say, "Preservation's wings, man." What the fuck does that mean? Preservation's wings?
I don't know. What does it mean when people in real life swear, Jesus H Christ? What's the H mean? There's just something.
I'm sure that there is something there. Just like there is something
But-
with the fact that
maybe.
preservation's wings. I mean, that is like, Brandon is so purposeful.
That's true.
There is something there. I just don't understand. The other one was Harmony's forearms.
Well, right, but that's because that's where he's got the bracers, right?
He's got the bracers.
Yeah, those are his metal mines.
But like, wings? And why are we still talking about preservation? 'Cause
Yeah, it's true. And they swear by rust and ruin.
just to get caught up here, when preservation and ruin combined, that created the shard harmony, which Sazed is holding on to right now. We don't know if they're fully combined, really. That's kind of somewhat up for debate if the two pieces actually formed a single whole, or if Sazed is actually just holding on to two parts.
So, listener, viewer, whatever, if you remember from watching Gurren Lagann,
What?
an anime that AJ has never seen, there's that scene in like episode 2 or 3 or whatever where they, where Kamina and Simone steal the mecha robots for the first time, and then they're getting their asses kicked by the bad guys, and it's like they're gonna combine, and then he slams the smaller robot on top of the first one like it's a head, and there's like a moment where they're just like, oh my god, that's so dumb, before they actually transform into a different giant robot. So it's like that. It's like we're not really sure if Harmony is just two giant robots in a trench coat, or if it's actually one transformed entity, right? I love the look on your face, the disbelief and horror, and why are you talking about nerd shit in my nerd shit podcast?
I hope one person out there got that right.
Well, and I'm gonna keep, maybe I'm just gonna refer to Gurren Lagann every single era, every single era we go through a Mistborn.
With your mouth right there, but
yeah. Because as you recall, it was also, very much tied back to the Final Empire Book 1, where you've got the false protagonist who, anyway, larger than life, and then dies right before the big, finale.
Ned Stark would have been a better reference, but I guess this is Cosmere. No. So anyways, since this is for the casual reader, listener, whatever, there is a lot of debate about whether or not harmony is the correct word to describe this, the shard/shards that Sazed is holding on to. There are the kind of the opposite of harmony would be discord.
We see that. We see echoes of that here. We see it a lot more in The Lost Metal.
Yes. So anytime you see the word discord or discordant, a lot of cousins or Doug's ears kind of perk up a little bit.
Especially
about that.
If it's capitalized for no reason.
Yeah. I don't. That didn't happen in this book. I'll read you a quote from where discordant came up. Well, since I'm not God, Waxilium thought, perhaps you could use that omnipotence of yours to drum up some answers for me. It feels like I'm in a bind. And then I think he's a discordant thought. Sazed wants to help, but he doesn't want to answer Wax's questions.
Right. And like the difference between, right. Okay. That's really
So Wax was, asking his god for help, meditating, praying, whatever you want to call it. And then, Wax says there was a discordant thought because, he was connected with Sazed.
Right.
Through the spike in his earring, right. And then there was a discordant thought.
Well, and that comes back again and again through Arrow 2 and presumably beyond, as well as like the epigraphs in, I want to say, Rhythm of War, but Sazed is pulled in two opposite directions by ruin and preservation, mm-hmm. And so as Harmony, he has a hard time acting, right? And so if you think about it chronologically.
And this gets discussed in later books.
Right. So. So if you think about it chronologically, why Sazed has such an interest in Wax is because he's realized through talking to Wit via the letters that are discussed in the epigraphs to Rhythm of War and Wind and Truth. He was like, oh, he can have, he needs somebody to act on his behalf, right? He needs to influence somebody to be his sword, and that's Wax.
I don't think I got any of that from the letters.
I mean, I think it's spelled out most explicitly in Mistborn Era 2, but like when you compare and contrast, like, because that there are letters between Sazed and Hoyd in the epigraphs to the Stormlight Archive in Rhythm of War and Wind and Truth, like you compare the notes, you get there.
If you put in the time and effort, of course.
Yeah. Or have a podcaster explain it to you.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome.
There you go. Perfect. And having the metal spike in the ear is one of the biggest ways that we're seeing hemalurgy in this first book.
Which was so interesting. Like I didn't realize in my first read through of this book, I didn't realize that nobody knew about hemalurgy until Ol Iron Eyes himself shows up at the end of the book and has to explain it to Marasi.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Because Sazed was definitely kind of playing up both parts. Because he had the words of founding. He put everything in there, except he very purposely didn't put hemalurgy in there. But in his own religion, it is of high importance that you're supposed to wear the earring, the spike, when you're praying and when you're doing something that is of great import.
Right. Yeah.
Sneaky.
Yeah. And I love sneaking. I know we talked about this already. I'm pretty sure it's been a while since we recorded. I love the earring as the callback to Vin and her earring, but I also like it as a way for,
Hey, if
I
it
like that
worked last time, if it worked then, why wouldn't it work in the future?
right. And there's a fancy word for it about something that is a symbol, but also does what it symbolizes. I forget what it is. There's a fancy word for it. I'll think of it. Maybe it'll be in the
Practical?
podcast notes. There's a fancier word.
Okay. And then a big topic we did not get into the last episode with is Lessie. So Lessie is only on screen for a chapter
In this book,
in this book. And it always takes me a minute to remember this whole first chapter was orchestrated by Lessie and Harmony.
do you think Leslie got a say in it? Because I think in the next book, the whole point of the next book is that she didn't get a say in it and was really hurt by it. Besides getting shot in the face, but
Well, that doesn't matter for Condra.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure she would have turned off her pain receptors.
well, yeah, is that a thing they do? I think
I'm pretty sure that's a thing. I mean, Ulam definitely would have done something like that.
Yeah, Ulam is special.
That's a different book. Okay, staying focused. Ulam is a different Condra. Okay, so Lessie isn't really dead. Lessie is a Condra, just to be clear, to say it out there. Orchestrated the whole Lessie dying
I can't remember.
in order to force Wax to go back home.
Is Bloody Tam also a Condra, or is he an agent of Trell?
I forget, but there are forces acting on Bloody Tam.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, like, because there's something, because, everything that he says in that prologue is,
I know I'm a puppet.
Right.
We all are. Someone else moves us.
right, and that's, I mean, when you know about how the Condra work, as of, the next book, Shadows of Self, like, that's the relationship with the Condra and Harmony, right? He controls them pretty directly once they've got
As puppets.
two spikes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very much the same way Ruin could control them in Hero of Ages, right? And make them do things they didn't want to do.
Yeah,
But it also works as the ravings of a madman.
it
right?
does. Yeah. But every single word Brandon puts down is super important and normally serves 3 to 6 purposes.
Right. Well, and I know I hinted at this in our first post-read episode that was, or maybe it was a pre-read, I don't remember. I know I've talked about this before, but as much as I dislike how Lessie's big role in this book is to be killed in a way that
Devastates
that
Wax.
devastates it's all about, it really, her role is all about Wax, which, I don't like that in general. I like
But it's also not like Condra are not necessarily gendered.
Okay,
So it's not like
yeah,
it's
but-
about
yeah,
oh,
boy.
oh,
And so it's an interesting take on that trope, right, of fridging, right, where you kill
You're
off
gonna have to explain that. Yeah.
yeah, so fridging is a trope where, especially in sci-fi fantasy, especially in comic books, a romantic partner for your male lead will be killed off in an especially heinous way, and the only reason for that is to motivate your male protagonist, right?
Is this like a subset of Red Shirt, or is this you see this as a completely different thing?
It's a different thing where
I suppose it is an entirely different thing.
right, and it basically the reason why it's so different is, red shirts are, you introduce someone, you give them enough of a backstory to make their death, count, basically, right?
But not too much.
Right. But you don't actually spend a lot of time in investing in them. Whereas, fridging is like, hey, you've got a female character who is, whose life and death is entirely subordinate to making your main protagonist, who's a man, do action, right? But this,
Yeah. But in a similar way, I feel like we don't get, like, we only got this chapter with her.
right.
Which is,
So-
like, the time frame and the investment is smaller.
And like
yeah.
the parts of the trope are, hey, you've got a female romantic interest for your protagonist. She's built up, over a while, and then she's suddenly killed off in a heinous way. Now, like that's what you get out of this.
His own gun is
Right.
pretty heinous.
Right. And that is, and it is very heinous and is very motivating for him. But also, she's not really dead. He doesn't know that yet. She's not really a she. He doesn't know that yet. right?
But as rereaders, we know that.
Right. And so like I think it was well executed. Pun. Even though I hate the trope. And I also like about that, like going back to Bloody Tam's, ravings, the best performances can only be experienced once.
Well,
Well,
and then
and then that's the end of Shadows herself, right?
well, which I don't have a clear memory for. So you were just like the beginning is kind of so funny because,
Not not funny, haha.
but you're like because you get to do that again later, and I'm like I don't have a super clear memory of it, like of a vague understanding. It feels different though.
Right. And
It feels different.
I mean, I guess I know we've already put the spoiler warning at the top of the episode, but also like, spoiler warning, like the end of Shadows for Self is he shoots Bleeder with the hemalurgic spike, right? And that's how Harmony gets full control over her again. And it's like it's literally
Bleeder is
is Leslie.
yeah.
Yes. So it's like, man, that's real. He shoots her in the face again.
Some more foreshadowing I don't think that we got to. Well, maybe we talked about it a little bit with moving on to Marasi. She makes a small comment in the beginning of the books about, oh, I do want to change the city. Though I feel like tracking down every criminal and punching holes in them with pieces of metal moving at high speeds is a terribly inefficient way to do it. And that foreshadows the very end of this era where she's going to run for office.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that is foreshadowing. I don't know. It's less clever. Like, yes, it's definitely.
I like it. I
Well,
like it
right.
when authors actually plan out an entire series
Yeah.
and have things at the beginning that don't pay off to the end. It makes it, I don't know, it just makes me
No,
happy.
you're right. You're right. I get so I get so enamored with the something else moves us, man, that I miss the more direct. Yes, he is explaining that Marassi does have public service ambitions.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that too. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
this first chapter reads completely differently, the second, third, fourth time around than it does the first time. I mean, there's not a whole lot of things that you can purchase and experience like over and over again and get a different experience. Like books, you can do that with a the really talented author. So do appreciate that about Brandon. B Money, whatever you want to say.
Random Sand.
Okay. What I found frustrating about this reread, so we get introduced to this, but
Do we
that's it. You get introduced to the name. There's some shadow organization called the Set, and that's all we frickin' learn. I don't even think we have a clear understanding if Mr. Suit is the leader of this organization or he's just one on a board.
A board member, really? I was gonna say, it's like,
Well, what do you want me to say?
I mean, is he the head of this cabal? Is he, is he part of some sinister plot, or is he merely
Well, he's
an
definitely
agent?
part of a sinister plot.
Is he merely an agent of their will?
Well, he's definitely high up. We just don't know if he's tippity top. I think we do get enough of a glimpse to know he's not the tippity top, or at least he has other people that he has to. I wouldn't tell some people that. Miles, people are murdered every day in this city. So I do like that callback to Puppet. It's another hint to you that you should be paying attention to anything Puppet related words.
Well, and yeah, I did not take very good notes. I'm trying to think about what exactly he said as he was being executed, because he goes off on a rant about Trell and what is it, the men of red and gold are coming?
One day, the men of gold and red, bearers of the final medal, not the lost medal, the final, will come to you, and you will be ruled by them. So that is an allusion to the god that he worships, a god named Trell. There is so much to go into about Trell. Like, was Trell, did Trell originate on this planet? Did it originate on a different planet? Is it truly a god named Trell, or is this a religion that was co-opted by a different shard?
Well, this is our full spoilers episode, so it's probably advantageous to point out that Trell is also a character name from White Sand. He's a minor character who shows up in the background.
We don't have any concrete information about whether that is related or not.
Okay.
Brandon has been asked this question and he has raffoed it.
Right, but I think that was before the Lost Metal came out, so...
I don't have a clear memory. For example, what is up with Constable General Britain? Britain.
Why is something up
He
with
was
him?
being, I don't know, it just seems weird. Like he was being all cool about everything going down and then he retires. Was that like, did a Condra take over?
I thought
Or was it the work of his uncle? Something's weird going on there, and I can't remember if any of that
I thought
comes up in the later books.
I thought you pointed out that he was being blackmailed and that he was forced into retirement. I thought that was in one of our recent episodes we recorded.
Not
Am I making that
not
up?
not Constable General Breton,
Oh,
a politician.
oh, gotcha. Yeah, I kind of just chalked those up in the same.
Something's weird. Something funny going on, and I can't remember if there's more that we find out later. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. More foreshadowing for Marasi for later books in this era. Marasi found that she was satisfied, and that disturbed her greatly. This was at the execution of Miles. So she's finding some internal awareness of kind of her boundaries and her ethics, and this is just kind of a small part that does lead to bigger things in later books. How this, ultimately plays into her turning down the Ghost Bloods is really what I mean by that.
I don't think I connected those dots, but you're right. That's the same thread.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, I think, why she even attracted the Ghost Blood's attention to begin with is, the same reasons why she's latching onto Wax is she wants to make a difference. She wants to make a meaningful difference. She wants to right the wrongs.
And she hasn't had kind of the real world experience to know where she's drawing her lines about what she's willing to do and what she's not willing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I'd also say is like I think of Marasi as more well rounded compared to Wax because she's got the book learning, she's got the education.
She's willing to put some thought into her ethics.
Right. I guess I read Marasi as more thoughtful than Wax.
Yes, which is interesting because I think Kelsier does think about those things, but I don't think
Really?
to some extent.
I mean,
he just doesn't draw the same conclusions that most of us.
I was about to say he's also yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm killing a lot of innocent people. Yeah, they're nobles. Fuck them.
Right. Like I think he does. I think he does. I think he takes a micro moment to think about it, and he thinks that's fine.
Yeah, I'll kill him anyway.
Yeah. So just because someone chooses a different path than you might take doesn't mean they didn't take that microsecond to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Potential Hoyd sighting. There was at the wedding breakfast, the bride and groom arrived, though he did wonder why they were speaking with a scruffy man dressed in all black who looked like a beggar. Hoyd frequently looks like a beggar in the Mistborn books, and he is frequently known for dressing all in black. So that was most likely Hoyd. Why he would be talking to the bride and groom, not really sure. Probably he just had the feeling that he needed to be in that area.
I don't know what to call. Do we want to talk about what we call his spidey sense? If we just call it his spidey sense,
No.
where he doesn't know what's up, but he knows that he's got
Isn't
enough
that
fortune.
Fortune.
He's got enough fortune, but like fortune is so
Vague.
right because and it's so wibbly wobbly wishy washy.
Well, we don't really know a whole lot about it, do we?
No, and I think when we dress it up in a capital F fortune word,
Super easy to do in an audio format.
yeah, whatever. I mean, yeah. But when we say fortune with the sounding like it's capitalized, it makes it sound like it's more of a thing than his spidey sense is tingling. He knows he needs to be somewhere, right?
I remember it being more just like, for some reason in my brain it stuck more as he'll arrive somewhere and figure out, no, this is not where I'm supposed to be. So I feel like it's more the opposite, where he doesn't necessarily know where he has to be, but when he arrives somewhere, he knows that this isn't it.
He talks about that like an Oathbringer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
We'll keep an eye out for that. We'll talk more on it later. I have some kind of things that I was wondering about.
His hoity sense. Hoity-toity.
Delightful.
All right. you were saying.
I have some musings about the future. A lot of emphasis.
I try to avoid thinking about the future right now, dear.
Pretty safe for the Cosmere, I feel like.
Yeah.
A lot of emphasis was really put on the fact that the time bubbles were kind of limited in shape and size and whatnot, more so than I thought for just explaining the magic system. So I'm almost wondering if that is something in era 3 that is going to be evolved, that we're going to be able to shape those bubbles better or move them.
Well,
And we know that
have
the time bubbles are in some way related to how Scadrians are able to travel through space,
not just travel through space, but achieve faster than light.
achieve faster than light travel. Yeah.
Right. Because like they can travel, they can, they can do whatever they need to do with steel and iron, right? To push, right? And
Right.
that we see that explored later on in era 2 with the airships or whatever. But in order to get really, really fast, like I don't see a way around that without time bubbles to do relativity type things.
Yeah. So something's going to happen there.
Yeah.
There was just weird emphasis on it. Like I have this quote: "The perimeter of his speed bubble, comma, wishing it would move with him," and then the rest of the story. There was so much. There was like just slightest bit of poking and prodding with that I bet it was foreshadowing.
Well, I also liked being constantly reminded of the mechanics of speed bubbles. Like you said, it was a new element introduced in this book.
Yeah, because
So
there were no speed bubbles in Era 1.
right, and those were
Cadmium, because the metals cadmium and
cadmium and bendalloy,
yeah.
which are fairly
Bendalloy,
exotic.
I don't know whether I hate the name or love it.
I mean, that's not a name there's a Wikipedia entry for it. It predates Brando, but it
Oh, Brandon didn't come up.
no, he didn't come up with Duralumin either. It's a
Bendalloy.
bendalloy. Yeah.
We humans are so weird.
Well, I was just gonna say metallurgists so weird, but they're metallurgists.
Not too.
Um, I like metallurgy. Shit, where was I going with that? Introducing this book, but also like the mechanics of it are just weird. And so I liked being constant. I mean, I didn't, it's not like, oh man, I really enjoyed this, this breakdown of it. It was more like, thank you for reminding me of the mechanics of it, because otherwise I would have been confused repeatedly. Right.
Well, he has to remind himself. He has a whole Wikipedia just to reference his own brain.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, to be fair, real physics is also confusing. The Wikipedia doesn't go into enough detail for real physics.
I remember AP Chem. I remember AP Chem. My professor or my teacher would just be like, "Okay." He would tell us something, and then he would just stop and look at us, and he says, "I just lied to you."
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "That was a blatant simplification, so much so that I just lied to you." But you're gonna pretend like that's the truth.
I mean, while we're going off on a tangent away from the Cosmere and useful approximations of reality, once upon a time, I was talking with my dad about his favorite regulation. And if you work in nuclear power, there's new regs, there are nuclear regulations. There was a quote from a new reg about all computer simulations are false. However, some are useful. And it's about, getting to the idea that even if it's an oversimplification.
Just because, doesn't mean
right?
It's not useful.
Right. It's about knowing the limits of simplifications. What does this have to do with time bubbles? I don't know. I think we just went on a tangent.
Okay. Let's talk about some connections to other books. So, as we learned at the end of this book, Iron Eyes or Marsh, Death Incarnate, however you prefer to refer to him, still alive. He is pseudo working for Kelsier and or Harmony. It's a little up in the air. He always kind of just takes care of himself. Anyways, that's what we saw in Era 1, and it's not super clear in my mind where his
relationships are complex.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's got enough spikes that he cannot oppose Harmony, just like the Khandra can't. It's just, Harmony can exert control over him at any time, just like Ruin did with Iron Eyes, in Hero of Ages.
Think about that.
I mean, yeah, that's just the way it is.
I wish we got to see more of Marsh and Sazed interact before the Ascension and stuff.
They have that whole buddy trip on in the Well of Ascension.
Yeah, but
that's
post Marsh getting the spikes.
I would Iron Eyes and
I would have liked to see them human to human.
Yes,
that would have been. I think that would have been easier to understand.
Yeah, but we also, we see references to, in other Cosmere books, there's no Grim Reaper. It's always death with spikes in his eyes.
Yes.
Now I think after Wind and Truth, that's more ambiguous than we thought about. Well, is it Marsh or is it Moash or Vire, or is it just the concept in general that
I
creatures with spikes through their eyes are death.
I imagine it was the Iriali going from planet to planet that was carrying that around. But we don't,
But
they weren't, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the way it's explained in, I think it's the Ars Arcanum. I want to say to this book is that, and it might be one of the other ones in Era 2, is that the mythology of Iron Eyes as an avatar of death has been spread by world hoppers.
I want a book of from the viewpoint of an Iriali leaving one planet and going to another. I want that book.
Okay, I bet it'll happen.
Okay, counting on it. Bloody Tam also referred to Marsh.
Really?
Yeah. He
What?
said, I have seen God, Lawkeeper. I have seen death himself with the nails in his eyes. I have seen the survivor who is life. Super confusing sentence for me to understand because it's like, okay, so you've seen Sazed, you've seen Marsh. Like, I guess that makes sense because they're kind of working together. But then the survivor, I feel like it's super unlikely that he would actually see Kelsier.
Why not? We know that Kelsier works with Sazed.
Sometimes, but
Yep.
they have very different goals. And like, I don't know why
They're not.
Bloody Tam would have a reason, why Kelsier would have a reason to get involved with Bloody Tam.
I mean, they've had 300 years,
I feel like there's something there to learn.
probably.
I just don't know
I
what it
completely
is.
forgot about that. So, yeah, good. Man, it's good thing you're here, dear.
In the intro, you already brought up that, the similarities between Wayne and light weavers like Shallan. Wayne is very good at like acting other people out because he just kind of changes his whole demeanor. So
Importance of a good hat.
yes,
I also love that.
and a good accent.
Yeah, and a hat and accent. Well, and I love that. I love that as a lot because I use that analogy at work where I'm taking off my quality engineer hat and putting on my other hat, and it's just like, hey, wait, hey.
There are very similar lessons that we see kind of between Stormlight Archive and this book too. It feels a little different, like the same lesson from a different way, but the Lessa Yasna teaches Shallan about, act like you're important and people will believe it. Wayne also kind of teaches that lesson. He just kind of explains it a little bit differently. So it was nice. It was nice to see that again. It's always something. Things like that. It's like, okay, you hear it, you do kind of intuitively understand it, but that doesn't mean you cross into the border of actually using that information to positively impact your life. So getting that over and over again. Super helpful. Did we talk the last episode about the fact that Miles' decision to go against the city is very vague and unanchored? I feel like we did.
I feel like we talked about that in our first post read episode, but like, yeah, he talks about how he doesn't feel pain anymore, but like,
Well, the fact that but he's got
yeah,
he's got an issue with the city. Like it's just like super vague and
yeah, he's detached from reality.
yeah. And Kaladin would definitely have something to say about this because Kaladin understands that people at the top will always be corrupt no matter who the people are.
I don't.
He is evolved from this, but I'm talking about book one.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, well, that's not quite right, but yeah, he does move on from that.
Okay, last section. A little bit more on metallic arts.
Do 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 do.
Isles.
Do do do. All right, I don't want to get copyright struck. We don't have much from Metallica.
Okay. Miles has seen Wax make shots he would have sworn were impossible. Is this a gift from God, aka Sazed? Is this just practice? Is this because, he has a more intuitive understanding of it because he can push things? Or is it all to do with how Wayne and his time bubbles interact with making shots?
I think the answer's got to be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, and a lot of column D. Like, because we see the
And
impossible.
D being something I didn't list because I only
Whatever.
mentioned 3 things.
Because, like, yes, he is very practiced. That is true. But he's also, like, I don't know. I remember, what was it the prologue where he just keeps missing over and over again?
What does he miss?
Well, I mean, for one, he shoots Lessie. But,
That's because
when he was trying to cover Lessie before he goes down into the, when they're chasing the brigands. But I guess when I read that, I was thinking that was just more like he was providing cover rather than actually trying to hit anybody.
right.
So I'm gonna unsay what I just said. I can delete it from the record. I edit this thing.
Okay. There are a lot of metals. There are a lot of properties.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
I think the more straightforward thing, Wax is a savant, right? the steel bubble that he does for himself, where
Oh,
he's
he's a
right,
steel savant.
that he's a
Okay.
steel
In
savant.
the same way that Vin was a
Bronze.
bronze savant.
Yeah, where not to the same extreme that Spook was a tin savant, but like he can do more with his steel than he could when he first snapped, right? It's becoming a part of his identity with a capital I that he is, how much that he uses steel.
Yeah.
It's not something that he does, it's something that he is, right? He doesn't burn steel. He is a steel pusher.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of metals, a lot of properties.
Yep.
I don't know why I have this written down, but I'll just say it. Aluminum stores identity. Duralumin stores connection. Electrum stores determination. Didn't really realize you could store that. When you're mixing in god metals, there's more than 16, so there's just even more to know,
Yeah.
which is also why I'm glad that Brandon reminds us of these things when they come up, because I think he knows that we do not have this all in our brains,
And there's a handy reference table in the Ars Arcanum.
which obviously I stop reading to reference all the time.
Well,
A good thing to try to keep in your brain if you can. Nicrosil burns away other people's metals.
we haven't seen that come up yet, though.
Not yet.
I was about to say, what? We're still this episode is still grounded allegedly in the alley of law.
I think it did come up because I wrote notes on it. So the reason why it comes up is because it stores that property didn't come up. What came up was in the fact that the terrorist people store investiture in a metal mine
Right.
of Nicrosil, and the note in the book was the people of Terrace use it, but they don't really know what they're doing when they use their powers to do that.
And they're very secretive about the so-called spiritual metals,
Right.
where they're reasonably open about steel runners can run real fast, but they don't talk about the spiritual metals and how they're used.
Allomancy feels very similar to the door on Cell.
Speak on that.
I don't know why I said that.
Do you want me to cut it from the record?
I mean, no, I feel like Chris I feel like Chris made that note in the Arcanum.
Okay.
I don't really remember why. I should have had more detailed notes on that.
I would say because they don't seem that much alike to me, but what do I know?
Well, in that to access investiture, you on Cell you're writing some kind of
Glyph.
rune or glyph,
Yeah.
whereas on Scadrial you're ingesting metals to get access to it in combination with some genetics. But which those are more similar than something like on Roshar, where you have to make a bond with a creature in order to get access to the magic. Listen, take it up with Chris. That's Khriss, by the way. Chris is particularly so. Back up. Chris is a character who's originally from the planet of White Sands.
Taldane.
Wait, shoot, White Sand.
Oh no, the plural strikes again. Oh no. If B Money ever makes a sequel, he has to do the aliens route and just pluralize it and then screw us all. Continue.
Character from White Sand. She is a researcher. She is a student at the University
Silverlight,
of Silverlight.
which we haven't seen on screen.
So Silverlight is in the cognitive realm of Roshar.
Really?
Don't we know that? Do we not
I
know
thought-
that?
I didn't know that.
I thought it was.
Citation needed.
Okay. Well, anyways, she is very Cosmere aware. She's been to a bunch of different planets. In world, she is the one writing the Ars Arcanum. And she occasionally leaves us clues and notes. And in this Ars Arcanum, at the back of this book, she is particularly interested in how hemalurgy interacts with the spiritual realm. Given that hemalurgy is not something that is well known on Scadrial at this point in time, it is interesting that she knows so much about hemalurgy, or that it exists. But I think with the question we should all be asking ourselves is, why is she interested in interacting with the spiritual realm?
I don't find it, because she wrote the Ars Arcanum for Era 1 as well, so the breakdown of hemalurgy in the back of Hero of Ages was in-world authored by her.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
how,
All right,
you
fine.
know.
That's true.
Now, do I know it's not like that was public knowledge in Hero of Ages either? But I'm assuming that she gets her sources, however she gets her sources. It doesn't,
That's true.
I'm happy with it not being explained on screen.
The
Takes
thi-
away some of the magic.
The thing about hemalurgy is that it is a magic system that can be practiced by anybody.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's interested in hemalurgy as a way to grant access to the spiritual realm is that she needs a way to access the spiritual realm without other innate abilities or methods.
Well, right, and that's because she's the eminent scholar in the Cosmere, right? And if she wants to learn about how the Cosmere works, the spiritual realm is a big part of that. And if, she doesn't have any innate, magic of her own, like she's not a sandmaster, she doesn't have a null bond, but hemalurgy, well, if that lets her run experiments and learn more.
Yeah, it's just a very brutal experimentation method. But
I mean, we learn more about that in the Lost Metal. But yes, you're right. Part of the core of hemalurgy is that you do damage somebody else's soul. So
spiritual web. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's the end of my notes.
Well, thanks, dear, for podcasting with me, and thanks, audience, for audiencing with us. Do you really want me to stop saying that? Thanks, listeners, for listening, and viewers for viewing.
Really appreciate you listening in, cousins.
Yeah, or Dougs, whatever you call yourselves.
We're reading Tress right now, so that's why the Doug references.
Yeah. Well, next up, we're gonna be reading and breaking down, Tress. So our intro and outro music is licensed through Tribe of Noise. The artist is Ketsa, and the song is Odyssey. If you want to reach out to us, our email address is cosmerecasual@gmail.com. We're on Instagram, Reddit. Are we on Instagram? I don't know. We're on social media.
Yes.
Cosmere Casual.
And until next time, keep your wits about you.